You're watching Better Business Bureau's Business at its Best, brought to you by Ataraxis. You've got employees, we've got solutions, human resources, insurance, benefits, and payroll. Our business is your business. BBB's Business at its Best.
Do you swipe that credit card with absolute trust, or do you wonder if someone is watching, working to steal the number and your money? Dale Dixon here with Better Business Bureau. Welcome to our weekly show, Business at its Best. We spend the next 30 minutes talking about safeguarding your privacy, keeping that credit card number, among other things, safe. First up, we take a look at the banking industry. That's right, bank on safety, and what's happening behind the scenes to keep your information and money safe from thieves who are constantly working to hack the system. Then, if you're an employer, what do you need to be doing to keep your employees' information safe? And if you accept credit cards, what are you doing to protect your customers from hackers and thieves? By the way, those thieves could be in your shop, behind the counter. Business at its Best is possible because of our media partners. We're on great stations including KTVB, Idaho's very own 24/7, and local News 8's Now channel. Well, the thief sent a tweet with a link to a site displaying the credit card numbers, names, and addresses and other personal information of more than 1,400 people. It was to prove that he or she had hacked into global payment systems and stole the information. Banks and payment processors are under constant attack by hackers trying to get their hands on information. The banks are working around the clock to keep your money safe. Jennifer Deroin with Intermountain Coummunity Bank joins us. Jennifer, thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
And you have branches throughout Idaho, both in the Panhandle, throughout southwest and southern Idaho.
That's correct.
So let's talk about this, and as we look at what happened with global payment systems, your bank actually took the opportunity to send out a press release as an education opportunity, telling people that they need to be vigilant. That was a word that I saw come up several times. As we talk about the person, the consumer who has the credit or debit card in their hand, and you say vigilant, what does that mean?
Dale, it means following best practices and regarding your own personal information. So whether it is from card usage or online banking, being aware of best practices. So making sure that at home, your online systems, you have up-to-date operating systems, antivirus systems, you're not accessing online banking on a public network at the local coffee shop. That can mean not surfing the net, maybe even on a PC that you utilize for online banking. And then as far as your card goes, just being mindful of where you give that information and how those individuals are storing it. And sometimes when you're out working with a vendor and they ask you for XYZ information, understanding and asking them how they're using that, how they're going to store that, how they're going to keep that safe. And then I think too, you need to remember that your information is out there in many, many places. And I think even if you are following all these best practices, you need to have identity theft insurance, because even if you're following all the rules, it's easy for a breach to occur, and you want somebody that is out there that can watch your credit report. I mean, you should be looking at that on an annual or even quarterly basis, but it's great to have a second set of eyes that are monitoring that and will notify you within 24 hours if something occurs.
And it's important to be checking before you slide that card that equipment is securely attached, because the credit card skimmers are definitely out there at gas pumps, ATMs, and things like that. On the business side, you also have some recommendations for businesses to help protect their customers. What should a business be doing?
Well, a business has a lot of responsibility. When they're accepting credit cards, they're usually working with the vendor that is going to help them with their PCI, payment card industry compliance. However, they don't want to be complacent. They still need to be on guard and understanding what their responsibilities are for keeping that information safe. A great resource for them is PCISecurityStandards.org that's going to help them understand what their responsibilities are. But it's common sense, not sharing information, not having information visible to the public, making sure that credit card numbers are what's called truncated, or basically the entire card number is not printed on the receipt. So that information is out there for others to obtain, because there are pretty severe consequences when information and fines when that information has been compromised.
Jennifer Deroin, Intermountain Coummunity Bank, thank you so much for that information for both the card user and the business. And a little later in the program, we turn to a payment processing company for a look at changes being made and more tips to keep your money safe. First, when Business at its Best returns, safeguarding the privacy of your employees. You are watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. You know, Better Business Bureau has 6 standards for trust. It's how we expect ethical companies to act in the marketplace. Advertising honestly, telling the truth, being transparent, being responsive, safeguarding privacy, and honoring promises are the BBB standards for trust. If you're a customer, it's what to watch for. If you own or manage a business, it's how to behave. Ataraxis makes this program possible. Each week, the company takes care of the day-to-day work of HR, benefits, and payroll, so a business owner can focus on growing business. Ciley with Ataraxis joins us to talk about keeping information safe in the marketplace. Welcome, Stephen. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
What are some of the common mistakes as you're out there working with small businesses? What are the common mistakes that you see being made in not keeping information
I think probably one of the biggest one is just the printer. Probably is the first bad one. Is just you print something, you forget about it, it sits there, somebody sees it, or they take it off and set it aside. And just improper storage and handling of documents. That can be a huge one. Just secure information that just lays around the office can be a bad thing, because you know whether it's a customer coming in and taking the information or one of the other employees, you just don't know.
And there are some specific rules in place regarding how that type of documentation is to be stored, and you've got to keep a log of who sees it in some cases.
Absolutely. Like the I-9 especially is the one that has to have the log of who accesses it, where it's stored. They have to be stored together. You really can't just have those around. You've got to keep them for a specific length of time after somebody's worked for you, so you can't just get rid of your files every year for people who don't work for you anymore. And they have to be accessed only by authorized people. Those have fines up to $1,000 for each one that is accessed by somebody that shouldn't, or you don't even have a record that proves that someone didn't access it. So you really have to. You could
actually experience a fine for that.
Yeah, you could, and they've fined a large company over $1 million because they couldn't prove it. So.
And that gets us into the next question. What are some of those liabilities that a company faces if they end up violating some of these rules?
Right. The business is liable for identity theft.
Okay.
So if you've got something laying around and somebody takes it, they see it, whether it be a social security number, credit card, whatever it might be, for the employees, if it can be proven that they got the information because you didn't safeguard it as a business owner, you're on the hook. And there's court cases to prove it. So you've got to be careful with that information because you've got a responsibility for it. Employee suits. If somebody believes
there's civil liability as well.
There's civil liability. You know, employer suits are huge, and if they go to court, 68% of the time the employer loses, and the award is over $500,000. This is on average for what goes on.
That's the average.
That's the average for the award for when they lose, when it goes all the way through court. So you got to be really careful, because if somebody can prove that you left something out that maybe had their health history or their birth date or whatever else, and they believe they were discriminated against because of it, and they can prove it.
Simple as a birth date.
Simple as a birth date. Age discrimination is a very large one right now.
Okay. And just so folks heard, almost 70% of the cases end up with the business losing the case.
They lose the case.
And it's a $500,000 loss.
That's the average. That's the average loss.
So what are a few of the general rules that every business needs to follow as they think about safeguarding information?
Know the rules.
Okay.
And
there's a lot of them out there.
There's a lot of rules, regulations, there's a lot of laws that you have to know, but if you're going to be an employer or you're going to run a business, you've got to know the rules that you've got to be governed by, because ignorance is not bliss.
No.
And the government isn't going to let you off on it. So if you can't take the time to understand how it works and what you should be doing, then you probably should look to outsourcing it to somebody who knows what they're doing.
Good reason to give the folks at Ataraxis a call. Ciley, thank you so much for your help with this and opening our eyes to how severe and serious this is. And coming up next, Dr. Ron Galloway, a business professor, joins us with some specific ways your company can respect privacy, secure sensitive data, and get this, honor customer requests. You are watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. And welcome back to Business at its Best. We're on TV in great Idaho towns like Rexburg, American Falls, Rupert, Gooding, Homedale, and Weiser. We're talking about ways you can grow your business by safeguarding privacy. Dr. Ron Galloway with Northwest Nazarene University joins us today. Thanks so much for being with us.
My pleasure.
We're talking about this idea, safeguarding privacy, and really it starts with having some good, solid, secure policies and procedures in place that have to be in writing.
Right. One of the main things we notice is that a lot of the information that's out there, particularly like social security numbers and, as your previous guest mentioned, birth dates and those kinds of things, it's kind of collected, and sometimes it's kind of thrown in a drawer, along with checks and other things that sometimes don't get deposited right away. And if you don't,
it's a locked drawer.
Well,
who
you
has
know,
the key? Yes, I know. Sometimes it's locked.
Sometimes it's not locked. Yes.
Sometimes the key's left on top of the desk.
And sometimes it takes quite a while to deposit those checks.
Yeah.
But what we've noticed is there is no policy. When you go through the policies, usually you're signing, you know, as your new employee, you're signing up for all the information, but you haven't been trained on exactly how to take care of all this stuff, and when you shred it and when you don't, and those kinds of things. Sometimes people have ongoing bills that are being paid by Social Security cards, and those numbers are kept someplace in a Rolodex file on top of the desk. Those things are deadly for you if you ever lose them, or if they're mishandled or taken by a disgruntled employee.
You know, even unemployment forms that arrive at an employer's desk have the Social Security number of the employee, even though they're not there.
That's right.
The paperwork's still sitting on top of a desk.
And quite often other places ask for Social Security numbers that really don't need them, like schools or driver's licenses. You know, when I moved to Idaho, I refused to give my Social Security number, and they finally changed the law to where now they give you another number.
Yeah.
But those things, that's a bank account number. If you think about it, it's a Philadelphia bank account number, and you're giving out your bank account number. How stupid is that?
But there are some cases, you say, when people should expect that information is going to be revealed.
Sure, and those cases are hopefully not frequent, but once in a while you'll have some legal authority that'll come along and say, you know, you have employee X, and we need to see if they have any past history, or if there are any things in their background that we need to check. It could be something criminal, or it could be maybe in a child abduction case, or perhaps in mishandling of funds, or we've had people from the IRS visit us, or from Secret Service visit our business several times, wondering about people and making investigations. So there are times when you're going to have to release some of that information. It's not improper to release it if you have already in place some kind of procedure that says, hey, in case something comes along of this nature, we're going to release this information on you because we're going to be obliged to do that. So just be aware ahead of time that this is going to happen.
But what I hear you saying is it does not suffice to say, we'll take care of that, we'll cross that bridge when it comes. It really needs to be in writing ahead of time, and those conversations need to be made ahead of time that, hey, just in case, we want you to know.
Sure. It should be in all of your different policy descriptors. And some organizations have 2 or 3 different policies for different statuses of employees. For example, in our area, we would have faculty policy, we'd have staff policy, and we'd have administrative policy. And each of those policies ought to cover those kinds of issues dealing with security, and you ought to be training over and over again. Remember that your workforce keeps turning over, and so just like you might have some types of training like you would do every year, perhaps for health care or some of those other deductions that you want taken, be sure that you're covering your policies on security over and over again each year, so you don't have any employees fall through the cracks.
Repeat. Dr. Ron Galloway, thank you so much for being with us from NNU.
All right.
Well, Better Business Bureau has a number of resources to help your company be the best it can be. Check out our website at bbb.org. Also, be sure to go to Facebook, search for BBB Snake River Region, click the like button. And coming up next, a look at what payment processors are doing to keep information safe. You are watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. You are watching Business at its Best on Idaho's very own 24/7 and Local News 8's Now channel. Our focus today, safeguarding information. Dan Harrington is the president of NLP Secure, and he joins us today. Dan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you, Dale.
We're talking mostly about credit card processing now and what it means for our company to be sure that they have secure connections. Tell us first about NLP Secure and what you do.
We help businesses with electronic payment solutions of all sizes. We help government all the way down to the hot dog vendor in the corner.
Okay.
And we help businesses, whether it's with cost controls, business automation, as well as working with their software and hardware that involved with processing payments.
So at the beginning of the show, we talked about the global payment systems losing probably 1.5 million customer records. A hacker got out and put 1,400 of them on the internet just to prove that he'd stolen them. How big of an issue is this for people and for business? It's
a very large issue, and a lot of people like to point fingers at especially competitors, and I like to remind our customers that if it can happen to a large enterprise like Global Payments, it could certainly happen to anybody. And all the more reason to be vigilant and to work with your people, your networks, your systems, and your third-party vendors, your collaborators that maybe the guy that takes care of the computer networks, your servers, your network, your website. You know, people that build your website, you got to have great relationships with these people that are protecting your business against information security potentially flawed holes and issues that can come up.
And it's not just electronic. I shared a story with you before we came on air about going in. We were on vacation on the Oregon coast, and we went in to rent some time on a fishing boat, and they actually were taking reservations on a piece of paper with a name, a phone number, and a credit card number to hold the reservation, and it was sitting there on the desk on the counter. So it starts there, but what are some of the steps that businesses need to be taking to safeguard this kind of information?
Well, first thing is operate upon the basis of good information. You know, if you're in business, reach out to the vendors, your local community bank, your payment provider, the company that takes care of your networks and systems, and then ask them, what should we be doing? What are our best practices applied to us? Once you know those, make sure there's good policies in place that determine how your employees act, and then educate, re-educate, and make sure that when people are hired, they understand their responsibilities. You know, you don't write credit card numbers on a piece of paper, and if you feel like that's your only technology opportunity, I can assure you there are technology solutions for every business size to protect information.
Absolutely. What's happening inside of your industry? Because it's constant. And I'm not asking you to give up the secrets because it's a cat and mouse game and you got to stay a step ahead of the hacker. But what are some of the things that are happening inside the industry to safeguard information and to keep pushing back at the hackers that are continually just trying to chip away?
Well, a lot of businesses feel like they have to retain the cardholder information on hand in their business, whether it's in a file cabinet or a drawer or someplace. And there's very great technology advances whereby you still can have the convenience of being able to charge a credit card, manage those
for a recurring
charge
for
recurring or relationship-based business, but you don't have to store that card information in your business. It can be stored in a third-party data center that you still have the opportunity to charge the card, but you have the liability greatly diminished because it's not stored in your file cabinet on your server in a file, even encrypted or not.
Big thing is to just have the conversation. Look at your vendors as team players.
Absolutely.
To help protect yourself and your customers.
Many businesses don't do that, and that's the biggest thing we can recommend.
Dan Harrington, president of NLP Secure, thank you so much for your time today.
Thank you, Dale.
And next on Business at its Best, if you have a computer connected to the internet, it is a potential target for thieves. How to protect your system. When we return, you are watching Business at its Best, presented by Ataraxis. And welcome back to Business at its Best. We're spending this time showing you how to safeguard your personal information, protecting your identity, and ultimately your money. If you own a business, what is your company's responsibility to maintain a secure computer system and database? Joe McKitish of SEN Technology joins us. Joe, thanks so much for being with us.
Yeah,
First of all, give us an idea of what SEN Technology is all about.
So what we do is specifically cloud computing is our primary focus these days. A lot of that is securing customers' information in the cloud and on their networks in their offices.
Tell us about the importance of data security. I think a small business owner thinks, well, I'm so small they're not going to be trying to hack into my system, but that's really opposite the case.
Yeah, I hear that all the time. Actually, they're the number one target, small businesses are.
Number one target.
Number one target. Big businesses, they typically have the money, the dollars to secure their network. Small businesses don't. And small businesses try to use consumer equipment to protect their data rather than business security equipment just to save costs. And what they end up doing is putting their employees' data at risk and their customers' data at risk.
And as we've heard up to this point in the show, there are some significant fines and liabilities that go along with that.
Yeah.
So as far as what can be done, what are some of the things that you're advising your clients to do to help protect that sensitive information, both for clients and their employees?
We have that conversation all the time. Small business owners always say that. They say, hey, we're too small, or they say, we have no sensitive information. Well, always they have a spreadsheet with their employees' information, and it's sitting on their server or on a desktop, and it has social security numbers, their health history, and all that kind of stuff in there. And that they typically don't encrypt it, and even if they did, that can easily be accessed. So, what they need to do is typically what we're recommending now is find a cloud provider and move that data out of your office. The small business offices are those big targets. Hackers just go after those small businesses all day long.
So how secure is the cloud? Because I can imagine that there are some folks who are saying cloud and off-site. Doesn't that expose me to more risk?
Depends on the cloud provider.
Okay.
If it's a cloud provider that's focused on consumer, You know, iCloud is a perfect example. iCloud is, you know, a great example of something that's consumer driven, Apple's product, and it's very secure. But its security is based on what is designed for consumer, you know, data. So you don't want to put business data in something in an area that is there. And I accidentally gave Apple some free advertising there, but it's a great product if you want to store your movies and music. But if you're going to store company files, you want to find the appropriate cloud provider for that.
And what are some, you know, basic top 3 things that a business needs to be doing?
Business needs to be doing is not only securing their data, that's a big thing, but also securing their employees' access to the internet. So oftentimes employees bring their own device to work. That's a big thing now, bringing their own iPads and those kind of things. Well, that data
plug them into the system.
That data needs to be secure. It's not only the business data that's going on it, but the data that's the employee's personal data while they're at work on the company's network. And that if the hacker comes into the company's network, accesses that employee's personal data on that iPad, the business is at risk.
And if you've got a computer used for banking, don't have it on the net.
Yeah.
So,
you know, if you're doing if you're doing banking of any kind, that's a big thing.
All right.
So.
We're out of time. Joe McKitish, thanks so much for being with us from SEN Technologies. That does it for this edition of Business at its Best. We trust you have a great week, and we'll see you back here next week.